Throughout history, the Forbidden City represented the pinnacle of Chinese royal authority, magnificent, protected, and beyond reach. Yet beneath its gleaming tiles and ceremonial grandeur existed a hidden reality. Within these sacred walls dwelled countless concubines, women selected not for their opinions, but for their attractiveness, and imprisoned in an existence of quietude, submission, and domination. They occupied a space neither as spouses nor as servants, but somewhere between, exploited, restricted, and erased from memory. Now we reveal the forgotten narratives of these women and the concealed sorrows hidden behind ornate screens and royal customs. During the sweltering summer of 1424, the corridors of the Forbidden City were shrouded in grief. The Yongle Emperor, renowned for his military conquests and monumental constructions, had drawn his final breath. Yet in the imperial court, death never arrived unaccompanied. It carried with it customs, rituals drenched in terror and deadly allegiance. 30 women, chosen from the hundreds within his enormous harem, were each given a piece of scarlet silk. This was no keepsake. It was a royal command of execution. During their lives, they had enjoyed the emperor's attention. In death, they were required to follow him beyond the mortal realm. This ritual, viewed as the highest form of loyalty, reflected less about affection and more about dominance, a demonstration of the emperor's control that reached even past death. No cries of protest emerged. These women, perhaps once young girls with aspirations, made their preparations in stillness, not for a fresh beginning, but for their closing act. A ceremonial elimination sanctioned by tradition. The concubines within the Forbidden City inhabited a realm of beautiful contradictions, an existence clothed in luxury, yet restrained by unseen shackles. Inside their sumptuous chambers, where surfaces gleamed with golden needlework and the atmosphere was perfumed with the fragrance of precious aromatics, they dwelled amid grandeur that only intensified their separation from the world. These women, educated since childhood in music, dance, writing, and verse, transformed into living decorations of the court, elegant, cultured, and completely dominated. Their mornings started with refinement, exquisite cuisine prepared by royal cooks, garments crafted from the most luxurious fabrics, and the perpetual rhythm of palace ceremonies. To observers, they embodied privilege itself. Yet under this facade of magnificence existed a reality molded by suspicion and yearning. Each movement was monitored, each expression deliberate, as the dynamics of approval within the inner palace proved as dangerous as any war zone. The emperor's favor represented the most desired reward and the scarcest commodity. Without it, a concubine vanished into insignificance, sentenced to a muted existence where attractiveness and skill transformed from gifts into curses. Observation was unrelenting. Even quietude could prove perilous. Gossip, envy, and minor conflicts drifted like phantoms across the decorated walls. More painful still was the isolation, separated from loved ones and prohibited from departure. Numerous concubines found themselves imprisoned in a beautiful prison, their existences gradually fading into monotony. Though they shared the same spaces, genuine friendship remained elusive. In a system so fragile that one evening with the emperor could elevate a woman above all others, companionship became a gamble few were willing to take. Ultimately, theirs was an existence of contradictions, opulent yet isolated, stunning yet sorrowful. The Ming dynasty rose from an uprising established by the Hongwu emperor, a former farmer who defeated the Mongol Yuan dynasty. Intent on building an empire of power and order, Hongwu established rigid regulations that influenced every aspect of society, particularly women's experiences. For the emperor, every element of his court served as an instrument for strengthening authority. Concubinage, already a well-established tradition, evolved into a matter of imperial organization. Young women from every region could be called upon at his will. This destiny could not be contested. Families presented their daughters like tributes to the divine ruler, seeking approval while dreading refusal. It represented a silent surrender of independence, of family connections, of future possibilities. The emperor commanded not only the empire's politics, but also the bodies and fates of its women. The Forbidden City transcended being merely the center of imperial authority. It functioned as a living stage of ambition, a magnificent labyrinth where every look held significance and each moment of silence could convey volumes. Within its massive crimson walls, a rigid social order governed with an iron will concealed beneath silk. At the summit reigned the Empress, the representation of dignity and moral excellence. Her influence was challenged only by the emperor himself. Her presence commanded respect, her status appearing unshakable. Yet even she moved through a complex network of demands and hidden dangers. Below her, the imperial wives, women of aristocratic heritage and political importance, operated like royalty on a chessboard, weighing obligation against longing, power against self-control. And beneath them, the concubines, an infinite wave of beauty, ability, and aspiration, remained in silence. Each was educated, refined, and displayed like a precious stone, yet existed on the brink of anonymity. Their sole advantage was allure, their only value the brief notice of the emperor. However, imperial attention proved to be a blade with two edges. One knight in his quarters could elevate a concubine from obscurity, bestowing upon her benefits, riches, and influence. Yet this same ascension sparked envy like flames, creating silent conflicts and concealed competition. The palace became a battlefield of elegance, where each level brought finer clothing, richer cuisine, and greater luxuries, but also sharpened the hatred of those left in shadow. Partnerships murmured in hallways could disappear by dawn, and grins frequently masked weapons. In this royal performance, each concubine served as both participant and piece, proceeding carefully through a contest where one wrong move could result in shame or death. The emperor's court offered no sanctuary. It was a garden of resentment where beauty flourished alongside treachery, and survival required not merely favor, but the skill to interpret the constantly changing currents of influence. The transformation into a concubine within the Forbidden City never started with aspiration. It commenced with an imperial order. When the royal court issued its command, it crossed the empire with tremendous significance. Families from every social level were required to offer their daughters, typically in their teenage years, for evaluation. Some viewed it as a chance to raise their family's position, while others considered it their obligation to obey. These young women, wearing their most beautiful clothing, abandoned familiar neighborhoods and the comfort of home to appear before the magnificent palace entrance. There, beneath towering barriers and ancient customs, their destinies were quietly determined. The choosing process proved thorough and meticulous. Appearance wasn't the only consideration. Composure, wellness, bearing, and even vocal quality were all carefully evaluated. The court sought more than attractiveness. It desired individuals capable of embodying the elegance and sophistication of the imperial residence. A minor flaw might send someone back home. While this disappointed some, it also meant rejoining the security of family. For those chosen, it marked the start of a fresh journey, one abundant with education and change. Under the supervision of skilled court advisors, these young women learned palace traditions and proper behavior. Every element of their daily existence became part of an organized schedule meant to ready them for service in the imperial setting. They learned to move with dignity, to speak thoughtfully, and to behave with serene assurance. Feelings, though normal, were carefully controlled as part of maintaining a calm and respectful demeanor. For many, this represented a pivotal moment, the start of existence within the empire's core. Though the palace doors sealed behind them, they entered a realm abundant with tradition, beauty, and ritual. Beyond the walls, their families watched with honor and optimism. Within, The young women adapted to a life that demanded much from them, but also provided a role in one of history's most extraordinary courts. They were chosen not merely for their current selves, but for their capacity to join a living heritage within the Forbidden City, in a domain where looks possessed tremendous influence. Beauty served as both a blessing and a burden. An attractive face might capture the emperor's attention, but could also inspire hatred from competitors. Envy hid behind every stare, and malicious rumors spread behind decorative fans. The inner court resembled a battlefield of unspoken conflict. Certain concubines, motivated by solitude, developed prohibited connections with eunuchs, the sole men permitted within the inner palace. Others grew attached to fellow concubines or court attendants, finding comfort in friendship. Yet these relationships, if uncovered, were labeled as treason. Consequences varied from loss of rank to execution. Even love, in its most innocent form, constituted an act of defiance. Despite overwhelming odds, several women shattered conventional boundaries. Wu Zetian, originally a humble concubine, maneuvered through the dangerous waters of court intrigue to become China's only female emperor. Intelligent, calculating, and relentless, she revolutionized the imperial court and made a lasting impact on Chinese leadership. Generations later, Cixi would emerge from anonymity to become the actual ruler of the Qing dynasty. Though disputed, her political expertise and endurance established her reputation. However, even in their victories, their stories were filled with grief, treachery, and sacrifice. Their success was no accident. It was a war fought in darkness. Not every concubine submitted to her circumstances silently. In one bold act of defiance, 16 women conspired to kill the emperor. Pushed to desperation by his strange and vicious requirements, they devised a scheme for liberation. It collapsed. Their retribution was immediate and merciless. In another sorrowful account, a young woman, deeply enamored with a eunuch and disgusted by the emperor's advances, selected death over disgrace. Her self-destruction became a whispered legend among palace workers, a dark emblem of quiet rebellion. Hopelessness often created bravery, but bravery seldom discovered compassion in the Forbidden City. Currently, the Forbidden City remains a monument to China's royal heritage. Visitors stroll its stone walkways, admiring its magnitude and splendor, yet few understand the narratives within the walls. The innumerable women who entered its gates never to emerge. The muffled cries were buried beneath its stone foundations. The quiet strength carved into every nook. These concubines never commanded armies or authored laws. Still, they survived a world few could comprehend. Their anguish, hidden by silk and gold, forms part of the narrative that history rarely recounts. And now their voices resonate again, emerging from the shadows of the Forbidden City.